Hello and welcome. I'm Steve Clemens, editor-at-large of The Hill. Thanks for joining us for the Future of Healthcare, Bold Bets in Health, a virtual summit in two parts. I'm looking forward to both parts. We're going to see what we're going to be talking about, all things health. The last year in healthcare has been one of unprecedented challenges and innovation leaps, while gaps in our healthcare system were laid bare. Researchers and pharmaceutical manufacturers achieved what seemed impossible: multiple vaccine candidates in record time. I mean, miraculous time. Healthcare heroes risked their lives to save others and went virtual in efforts to bridge divide, showing us examples of courage and ingenuity. Once we realized our goal of shots in arms, what's next on the innovation front? And what policies and new models of care do we need to embrace to make sure these innovations reach everyone? What do we do when the next pandemic comes? That's another big topic. Our first hour will focus on medical breakthroughs, taking a look at the new treatments and digitalized care tools that patients can look forward to as medical technology innovates at warp speed. In our second hour, we're going to take a look at how we balance cost with innovation to ensure that patients can actually afford the latest in medical technology. This being Mental Health Awareness Month, both segments today are going to highlight the need for quality mental health care in this country and the innovations that can't come soon enough on this front. And we're going to have a very real talk about the unevenness in providing mental health coverage around this country. It's a huge issue, and we're going to take it very seriously. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Planned Parenthood, for its support of today's event. Got a fantastic lineup of speakers joining us, including HHS officials, that's Health and Human Services, senators, CEOs. Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at The Hill Events using the hashtag #TheHillHealth. We're broadcasting live, and we'll be taking your questions throughout the program. And if you experience any trouble with a live stream, they just say if you refresh the page, that should be a quick fix. I laugh here because it never works for me. I just really, really hope it works for you. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Julia Manchester, political reporter at The Hill. She's awesome. She's going to be leading our first two conversations today. Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Steve. As countries begin to reopen travel, finding a safe and secure method to share health information, such as a COVID vaccine status, has been a hot topic. Paul Meyer is the CEO of Commons Project, the company behind Common Pass, which would allow people to document their health status as they cross borders. Paul, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to start off with, tell us a bit more about the Commons Project and what exactly it is and what you're trying to achieve through it.
Yeah, the Commons Project Foundation is a nonprofit organization that we launched about 2.5 years ago, really with the idea of building digital services for public good. Our theory was that technology is this incredibly transformative force in society, but almost always brought into the world by big tech companies and startups. And there's some digital services that are basically common goods, and we needed a new kind of institution to be able to attract amazing tech talent, but to build digital services for public good. And so we were launched out of the Rockefeller Foundation about 2.5 years ago, long before COVID.
Yeah, and tell me about Common Pass. I know that in researching it and looking up, it seems like it's some sort of could be compared to a vaccine passport, if you will. Tell me more about that.
Well, before Common Pass, I want to tell you what we were doing before, which is the foundation, which is Common Health. Right? Common Health is a platform for people to collect, store, and share their health information for healthcare purposes. Some of you with iPhones probably use Apple Health, and Apple Health lets you connect to hospitals and labs and other things and pull your data down and be able to manage it and then decide to share it with a new doctor, a telemedicine provider. But that capability didn't exist for the majority of people in the country and frankly, 85% of the world that have Android phones. And so what the Commons Project was working on before COVID was Common Health, and it's now connected to over 400 health systems. Again, solving this problem of letting people get digital access to their health information. I mean, we just heard Steve talking about the incredible acceleration of digital health and telehealth. But the challenge with that model is if individuals can't bring their healthcare data with them, those models don't really work, right? You can do this could be a telemedicine visit, and I could say, hey, stick out your tongue and say, but if I can't share my labs, my medical history, it's really hard for telehealth and digital health to be effective. And so that was the project and the problem that we were working on long before COVID and we'll be continuing to work on long after. But built on that, we realized when the pandemic happened, because we had built this capability under this nonprofit sort of public good structure to let people collect and manage their health information, we realized that there was going to be a new reason that people would need to do that, which would be to share their health status to get on a plane or cross a border. And so that led to Common Pass, which began with people getting tested and then being able to upload their test results to Common Pass. Common Pass can tell you what the rules are in the place you want to go. We first piloted it between Hong Kong and Singapore and London and New York. It's now operational with United Airlines and JetBlue and Lufthansa and Hawaiian and many others, so that people can get tested and soon vaccinated, upload their records. Common Pass conveys to the airline or the destination that the traveler has met the requirements, but keeps the health information within the full control of the individual.
That's so interesting that you mention airlines, because I know that more and more airlines are checking to see, if someone's been tested or vaccinated, and it's very quickly becoming the norm. But could you see this potentially becoming the norm with maybe businesses or other places where people congregate? I know it's a bit of a hot button issue and there's a lot of strong opinions on both sides, but do you think this is the direction we'll go in a post-COVID-19 world?
I think it definitely is for international travel and border crossing, right? I mean, for many countries, you still have to show yellow fever certificates. And I think it absolutely, right now, most countries either have borders closed or require testing. And now some are beginning to allow vaccination records as sort of proof or requirement for entry. So earlier this week, the European Union announced that Americans who've been vaccinated can travel to Europe this summer. So we're involved with working with most of the airlines to talk about how that can be enabled. So I think it certainly will, this combination of vaccination and testing status will be something that will be required for international travel. Right now, travelers coming into the United States have to be tested within 3 days prior to travel to the US. I imagine that soon we'll likely see some sort of exemption or some provision, which if you're flying into the United States and you have been vaccinated, you might need to show proof of that as an alternative to testing. Again, right now, everyone's talking about, great, you vaccinated Americans can fly to Europe this summer. Well, they're also going to want to come home. And so the question is, what will be the requirements when they return home? So there are active dialogues now going on between the U.S. government and the U.K. and EU and other government counterparts on that topic. I think the question around domestic, the concert, go to a concert, go to work, go to school. I think that's probably much less clear. New York seems like it's getting back to normal pretty quickly, but I think you certainly have seen some school districts, some sports leagues talk about either having testing or vaccination requirements. So I think it's likely to be a hodgepodge of different approaches domestically.
Absolutely. And I think we do have a video question from one of our viewers, and I'd like to go to that.
My questions today are regarding the role of universities in the breakthroughs and innovations that we see in healthcare. Has that role changed over time? Has it increased, decreased? And also, are there advantages or challenges in working with universities to get their research transferred into industry in order to create those innovations? Thank you.
Paul, I apologize. We actually had a bit of a mix-up with the tape. That question wasn't exactly for you, but I do have another question when it comes to security concerns going forward with this. Obviously, more people are starting to use this technology, and that involves them putting their personal health information in the app. What are you doing to make sure that information is kept secure?
Ultimately, because the only place it goes is that it stays on the person's device entirely in their control. And that's foundational. And again, the reason we started the Commons Project, Foundation as a nonprofit is because we wanted to be able to build and operate digital services for public good for people, where we're not a commercial enterprise. We have no financial incentive to sort of sell data or monetize data, and we felt that those are the sort of foundational principles that we started with, and I think people are understandably very kind of concerned and skeptical of what who's handling their data, where it's going, and so forth. And given that we really are building this and intend both Common Health and Common Pass to be common utilities for public good, we think that, it's really important not only to have those principles, but also that operating those under a nonprofit structure that's never going to get bought by a big tech company or, doesn't have shareholders expecting, big financial returns is really, really important point. Ironically, on the university question, might not have been for me, but I do have a response, which is actually our Common Health actually was initially a project at UCSF and Cornell Tech, two universities, who saw this need to create the Android equivalent to Apple Health. And it actually started as an academic project, an open source project, but they realized, oh, wait, this is a real thing that needs to operate and it needs a home. And so actually the Commons Project really got started by an initiative that began as a university initiated project, not commercialized into a company, but actually into a nonprofit operating structure that is the Commons Project Foundation.
That's fascinating and just so interesting that it really started in that sort of educational environment. Paul, thank you so much for your time today. I'm looking forward to going back to normal, so hearing your perspective is fascinating to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.